This presentation is going to be over the recommendation report topic, NASA and ISRO Mars Orbiter Program. NASA's Mars Orbiter Program that I'll be talking here is going to be Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter MRO and ISRO's Mangalyaan. Mangal means Mars, Yan means vehicle. What are the objectives of the Mars missions that are being carried out? The first one is to determine whether life ever existed on Mars. Second one is to characterize the climate of Mars. Third one is to characterize the geology of Mars. And the fourth one is if human explorations can be carried out in future or not. The potential problem with these Mars missions are that they are very expensive. With all the space programs going on in today's world, managing the Mars missions are very expensive. One of the possible solutions is to adopt the program that ISRO has been operating because they have been successful with it. The three criteria that I have choose to describe this recommendation report are going to be technology, timeline, and cost. Technology means the developing and functioning of spacecraft and scientific instruments that are used to carry out research on the surface of the Mars or in the atmosphere. Timeline, working on a strict timeline constraints for a successful mission. Cost, the total cost of mission includes the building of spacecraft, launching it, and then maintaining it when it's in the Mars orbit. Technology, it includes manufacturing of all the scientific instruments and developing spacecraft. Scientific instruments will be collecting information on Mars surface, features, morphology, mineralogy, and atmosphere. This spacecraft will be collecting all this data and sending it to the scientists and engineers in NASA and ISRO. Atlas V rocket launcher was used to launch MRO, and PSLV-C-25 rocket launcher was used to launch Mangalyaan. ISRO was making a GSLV rocket because PSLV is not capable enough to send a Mars, is not capable enough to carry out Mars missions. But the manufacturing of GSLV failed and they couldn't get it ready to launch Mangalyaan. So they had to use PSLV-C-25 rocket, which was questioned by all scientists and engineers throughout the world, but ISRO made it happen and they were successfully entered Mars orbit. The timeline constraint. MRO was launched in 2005 August and it entered Mars orbit in March 2006 in around 6 months. Mangalyaan was launched in November 2013 and it entered Mars orbit in September 2014 in around 10 months. Both the spacecraft entered Mars orbit using Hohmann's transfer orbit. Both of the spacecraft that were launched, they started orbiting around the Earth and slowly increasing the size of the orbit, and when they reached the Hoffman's transfer orbit, they jumped into the Mars orbit, and that's how they entered the Mars orbit. And that time is very critical because if you miss that time crunch, you get delayed for several years until when the Mars gets close to the Earth again. And that delays all your future space missions. The cost. The total cost of MRO was over $700 million, while the Mangalyaan cost was just $74 million. To easily understand that, Mangalyaan cost was even lower than some of the Hollywood movies' budget, like Gravity, for example. ISRO successfully entered Mars orbit at 10 times cheaper price than NASA's, and it entered in the first attempt, which was remarkable. This is due to the fact that ISRO's manufactured all the components at a lower price than NASA. NASA bought its rocket from a company which costed them more. The other thing is, despite ISRO just spending $74 million, it has been achieving all the scientific objectives just like NASA's MRO. They have been using different technologies, but the end objective goals are the same. So, in this report, I would recommend that ISRO's Mars program should be carrying out the future Mars missions because the quality instruments, both of them, NASA took 6 months, ISRO took 9 months. which is where both are cost effective. And the other thing is spending 10 times more money on NASA and getting the same scientific objective. I don't think that's really worth it. These are my sources, and my recommendation report is here. You can read it in more detail in this part. Thank you.